All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Barbarian Noetics podcast. We have a very special guest today. I'm super stoked to bring this guy into the Barbarian Lair. All the way from Portugal, we have the great Christian Yordanov. Now, Christian, he's a true Renaissance man. I call him a truth caster. He's got two different podcasts, both incredible podcasts, Connecting Minds and Children's Health podcasts. He's an all around amazing person, importantly. And Christian is also a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And he's the author of an incredible book, Autism Wellbeing Plan, How to Get Your Child Healthy, which I have been reading through and I find to be impressive, first off, and incredibly informative and comprehensive. It's a comprehensive resource for parents to understand the most common health problems that autistic children suffer from and how to address them. The scope of his health research covers many areas, including children's health, pregnancy preparation and recovery, which is an interesting one I want to touch on today, and optimizing health and longevity. So, Christian Yordanov, welcome to the Barbarian Lair.
Thank you, Raven. You're making me blush, bro. I appreciate all your kind words, and it's a great honor and pleasure to be with such an amazing, beautiful human being such as yourself on your podcast, brother.
I really appreciate that, man. Just for listeners who may not be acquainted with you, would you just kind of introduce yourself and let folks know? Like, I always like to ask people, what road led you to your current path? We all have such circuitous life paths. And
Yeah,
how did you find your way to your current position as truthcaster, health consultant, and rock star?
man, I don't even know, bro. Ever since I can remember, I was constantly into new and different things as I was growing up. New hobbies, and I remember even at a very early age, my family members around me would say, you need to like stick to something, pick something and stick to it. And I was never into that. I'd play guitar. I was in a punk rock band. Jesus, what else? Like at one point, I was gonna be a personal trainer. I was doing Thai boxing for a while. And when I hit 30, I did an amateur Thai boxing fight. First in my life at the age of
Damn.
30. Yeah, dude, I was like in so many things. I was in at one point I was doing courses in on information security and information systems auditing. Just I can't even my wife, like, she's like every 3 months I have a new thing going on, and she's no longer even like surprised. She's like, God, what will you come up with next? And if you look at like my books all around the house here and downstairs, just like an incredible array of different things, from gardening to spirituality to conspiracies. So I have no idea, but what I did a good while ago, was that 16 personalities test, which is like the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And the result of that came as the Explorer, I believe it was, like, if I can remember correctly. And the Explorer is like, the description was, you mean I can't be an astronaut and an entrepreneur and a da 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 da. So I'm that kind of personality. So um I was always into kind of the health stuff, I guess. Well, not always, but for the last 15 years. And one of the things that really kind of got me into like really understanding health, and it was actually my grandmother. I mentioned it when you were on my podcast uh a while ago, which I'm about to publish that episode. But seeing her sort of age and degenerate at the I suppose at the mercy of the doctors that were quote unquote taking care of her, with all these medications, and no one actually helping her with anything, just pumping her full of drugs. And like seeing her sort of suffer the last years of her life, I was like, well, Jesus Christ, like I have to figure out, is this purely genetic? Am I going to succumb to this? And is there no way out? Or is there something else? And that was, I guess, around 2017, 2018. And I started getting really into like the microbiome, sort of the real nitty gritties of health, and how nutritional status and the nutrients we consume or are deficient in or insufficient in can uh, exacerbate vulnerabilities, genetic or otherwise, and can contribute to even psychiatric type conditions, right?
Mm.
And then it was soon after that when someone in my family basically was suspected of being a child was suspected of being on the autistic spectrum, and that's when I really started diving deep into autism. And that was our 2018, and then 2019 I started writing my book, and then 2020 I published the book. And since then, um and since getting certified as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I've just been like really getting deeper and deeper into everything. So I do, with my clients, I do all kinds of testing. So urine, stool, food sensitivity testing. So we test for pathogens, nutrient status. We do hair testing for toxic metals and uh, nutrients. And it's genetic testing as well. And it's like an ever growing sort of array of knowledge that I'm sort of building and researching. And it seems to be an ever growing sort of I suppose, basically, like, just to kind of wrap up, I feel like I will forever be a student of this health stuff, because it's just such a broad thing. You could specialize in just one thing, like gut stuff, or like liver stuff, or just genetics, or just methylation, which is a very sort of specific thing. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. And this is like, again, it all started with just folks close to me, and just trying to figure out, is it environment, is it genetics, is it a combination thereof, and can we do something about it, or are we at the mercy of big pharma and the butchers?
Yes, exactly. The white coat butchers.
Yeah.
As I'm sure listeners of the BMP are well aware, it's not a healthcare system; it's a sick care system, and I just love the mentality of taking matters into our own hands. We don't have to be at the mercy of anybody, and it's actually, we're both, you and I, we're both do our own research type guys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm not afraid of that label. And that doesn't mean like being reckless. It certainly doesn't mean uninformed. It means the exact opposite. It means being truly informed. And by true, I mean like you are discerning about the information that you take in. You're discerning about the media you consume, the people that you consult with, and the techniques that you go about doing. I find it interesting that you are such like a Renaissance type guy. First off, did you win that fight when you were 30? Was it Muay Thai?
Bro, like, I don't want to start making a lot of excuses, but let me tell you why I didn't win the fight. So we were with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. First of all, we went to Amsterdam on our first trip together, about 6 weeks before the fight. Came back after that, got sick. Um, I was training so hard, sparring so hard, that my shins were in absolute bits. I couldn't kick with my right leg. I was training so hard. I was going, like, the office where I was working. I would go train at the lunch breaks, come back, and then I would sit. I didn't have time to, like, cool down, stretch. So I messed up my right hip. In fact, I had to, after that fight, for months, several months, I couldn't sleep. I was waking up at night from the pain in my hip. So my wife, luckily, she's ex-professional ballet dancer, ballerina, and she was getting injured a lot. So one of her family members, he had a contact for Conor McGregor, the MMA fighters,
Damn.
physio guy. They call him Mr. Pain, for
Wow.
probably obvious reasons, right? So through my wife, I went to Mr. Dr. Payne. Sorry, not Mr. Payne, Dr. Payne, they call him. So I went to Dr. Payne, Conor McGregor's physio in Ireland. And this bro, I guess I went, I don't remember, 10, 15 sessions with him. But he fixed me up, bro. My whole hip joint, my femur bone was popped out of the socket. So he got me back. It
Damn.
was very painful, and but like, luckily he helped me out. But yes, I was doing a lot of things very stupidly. I was breathing wrong. I was mouth breathing when I was training. This is something that I learned since I studied with one of the foremost experts on breathing in the world. I'm certified as a Buteyko breathing practitioner, which is breathing re-education, um, uh, related stuff. And since fixing my breathing, like a lot of problems I've had got fixed. So no, I lost on points. I managed to last all 3 rounds, and I nearly knocked the guy out a few times. But this kid, he was like 10 years younger than me. He was almost one head taller than me. He was ripped. He was ripped to shreds. And then when the ref brings you in before the fight starts, he was just like looking at me, like
Damn,
like
they call that being juicy. Like he
he
was
was like,
possibly juiced up a little bit.
yeah, oh, he was like so pumped. That, oh, and also I was, by the way, I was also doing that whole year of training on a vegan diet, plant-based, which was very
Mm,
stupid, very very
mm.
stupid. Um, so I lost on points, but I could have knocked him out a couple of times. I had a chance.
So I really feel more and more as I live life, I feel like existence is kind of like a school for our spirits, and everything that we go through and the experiences that we have and the ups and the downs and the strikes and the gutters, they all carry all these like really deep lessons, and then the lessons start blending together, and some you have to have one lesson before you can appreciate another lesson. But what I just kept on thinking about with your story is how important it is to remain balanced all the time, because as I'll say it too, like especially as men, like sometimes we have this mentality of like you got to get after it, get it, and like some of that is good. My neighbor
Yeah,
Reynaldo, he always talks about how like ambition is good, but then at the same time, if you go too hard in the paint, that's then you actually just straight up injure yourself. I'm always coming up to that with my workouts. Like I had a really bad bicycle accident back in 2016. I did
mm,
everything I possibly could have done to my left leg except break any bones, like any
wow,
ligament, any tendon. It was like stretched. It
ah,
was I had zero mobility, walking around crutches for months. It was really fucked up.
Jesus,
And so I'm it's going to be a forever process, basically recouping from that. I am making progress, and the
oh yeah,
weight training is really helping me. I find like every time I have like a really traumatic injury, like I broke my wrist, when I can start to do like the weight training and strengthen the muscles around the joint or around the bone that was damaged, like that seems for me to really make the biggest difference. But I'm
hmm,
always coming up against that personal wall of like, how far is too far? How, you push yourself you want to push yourself, you have to push yourself, because meaning in so many ways, like meaningful things, what makes things meaningful is the fact that they are difficult. So if you never push yourself, you're not growing from your edges, you're not building that
yeah.
character. It's very important. But then at the same time, you go too hard in the paint and then you actually straight up injure yourself.
Well,
Did Yeah, go
yeah,
for it.
when I was writing my book, bro, 8 months of research, writing, and editing to publish this book. With, again, I was telling you before we started recording, with last course I just published. Like, I just set arbitrary deadlines, which is a good way to get shit done. But dude, 14 up to 14-hour days at the computer, staring straight ahead, and I messed up my neck, I messed up my lower back, and it's still haunting me. And it's 3 years ago, right? It's still haunting me, this back pain.
Damn.
I still can't rehabilitate myself fully out of that. And anytime I spend like several hours at the computer a day, like my neck just I go to the chiropractor every week, and the guy's like, Jesus, what are you doing? Like, what do you like? He's like snapping me back into place. But he's like, you know what I mean? You understand very well that we are treating the symptom here. You need to like stop whatever it is that you pushing yourself, like you say, you're pushing yourself, and you kind of have to know your limits, because
Yeah,
we're not
what
as
do you
young as we
think?
used to be.
I don't want to get too derailed on this topic, but I do think it's a really interesting one in terms of like deciphering how you get to that, how you go up to that line, like right up to the line where you're pushing yourself as far as you possibly can without going too far and actually hurting yourself. One thing that I've discovered is that the more that I become tuned in with my body, so this ties in. I love the fact that you took that breathing course, man, because just like meditation is so like central in my mind, like foundational for everything mental and physical health, the
Mm.
breath, man, you can't possibly get much more like foundational than the
Oh yeah,
breath. It literally informs absolutely everything.
absolutely.
um but yeah, I find that the more I tune in with my body, the more I sensitize myself to my own electrochemical situations, your body will kind of give you a heads up, like dog. For me, it comes in little twinges, sometimes even like little electric shocks, like, and it's a warning, being like, okay, you've done enough friggin' Turkish get-ups today, bruh.
Jesus.
Take a break. I don't know. Do you have any?
You know,
Yeah.
yes, something I'm trying to research a little bit at the moment. I think honestly, genetics plays a big part here, right? So um, think about dopamine, right? It's that neurotransmitter that's associated with motivation, getting stuff done. And if you have um, certain polymorphisms in certain genes, you methylate or degrade dopamine faster than other folks. And certain nutrients in the diet, for example, from onions, quercetin, which is found in certain other vegetables, but onion is a classic example of this nutrient. It can affect the speed of the enzyme. So it can certain things can slow it down. Can It's the COMT, catechol O methyltransferase enzyme. It basically breaks down estrogens and certain things like dopamine. So my COMT has no polymorphisms, quote unquote. So the enzyme works at normal efficiency. So it can lead to, and I think we talked about this last time, I can't remember. It can lead to um, you having a lot of getting through your dopamine very quickly, and this can cause you to want to switch from subject to subject, or from topic to topic, or from conversation point to conversation. And other people that, let's say, their enzyme is slowed down, they have like one or two polymorphisms, or one or two alleles in that gene, for example, they can uh, they can be very rigid in mind, so they can like focus on a task for a very long time. And I'm starting to suspect this is where a lot of like ADHD and autism may have those idiosyncrasies. Like ADHD, you might be like me more. Autism, you might have a less efficient enzyme, so you might be like more sticking to one thing, want to stick to one thing. And so obviously it's a much more complex thing than just one gene, just one enzyme. But um I think it has to do with it definitely influences that, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do, yeah. Yeah, the whole enzyme thing friggin' fascinates me. And actually,
Yeah.
this kind of ties into my first question or conversation I wanted to have with you. So, I'm reading your book about the autism wellness plan. And what I'm finding is that it's so incredibly relevant to like my own life. And so it kind of made me think about the fact that, you know, so much of this is, no matter what you're going through, what your genetic situation is, what symptomatic challenges you have, where you are on the spectrum. I'm kind of the belief that like we're all on the spectrum somewhere. These, what your book does and your work in general, I would argue, you go after the universal truths, which is fantastic because it's like the information that you're taking in pertains in some way to my own life, to my friend, to everyone in my life. Like, I find that fascinating. Like, what do you think about that? The idea that maybe we're all on the spectrum and that some of these truths, these universal health tricks pertain to all of us.
Absolutely, bro. And thank you for your kind words again. Dude, everything, it's like there was one paper I was reading for as the research for my paper was going on. And there was the guy, I think Stephen it's either Stefan Genois or Stephen Genuis. I think he's Canadian. If he's French Canadian, it's probably Genois. But he's a great researcher. He's done a ton of research on uh, toxins and the toxicants and how they can mess you up. So um, in there, I think he said something along the lines of, there are many ways of being sick, but there are a few ways of becoming sick, right? So
Mm.
again, when you couple, let's just say the very briefly, what are the ways of being sick? Because we know there's we could list diseases, conditions, and everything until the cows come home. You got your psychiatric things, you got your autoimmune stuff, you got your childhood stuff, you got your, just like, they keep coming up with new ones. every year there's new autoimmune stuff, and but the
And there's
ways.
also always new toxins too. That's the thing. It's like always new toxins. All
Yeah,
it's
and
yeah.
there's new interactions between these toxins, and so let's talk about what are the ways of becoming sick. Well, stress, right? So stress is the big one, and that can be, it can be um, physical, it can be psychological stress. That's a big one, actually. It can be mechanical, physical, mechanical. Can physiological, mechanical, and physical. You can kind of put them in that category. And then there's biochemical stresses, right? So we have biochemical stress. A biochemical stress can be uh, uh, nutrient inadequacy, overt nutrient deficiency. It can be toxins, toxicants. So just to be technical here, toxin is something like a bacteria or a yeast, something in the gut or a mold creates, like mycotoxins, endotoxins, and stuff like that. And a toxicant technically is something like a toxic chemical, toxic metal, and things like that. But for the sake of conversations ease, we just call them all toxins. So you have your toxins, endogenous, exogenous, and that's here's the so these are the main things, right? So nutrient deficiencies, uh toxicity, and also nutrient excesses, and the various other stresses, psychological and so on. So these are it. These are the biggest sources um, of um, of why people are getting sick. Because when you think about it, we have different genetic predispositions, right? Like for example, in my family, we have like depression runs through our family, atherosclerosis, stroke runs through the family. And when I've done my genetic testing, a lot of the genes that have the most research backing their validity, clinical validity, are associated with those things that run in my family. So
Mm.
we're at a stage where we understand this stuff a little bit better than 15, 20 years ago. And so you have your predisposition. So we have, let's say, a few genes in my family that predisposes to these things. These things will only occur, let's say, be it miscarriage, pregnancy loss, atherosclerosis, um, depression, and so on. They will only occur if the how do I say it? If basically your nutritional status is not up to par. If for example, what I'm doing, for I have the MTHFR homozygous, uh not a defect, but it's a variation, right? And that one is associated with those things I just mentioned. So atherosclerosis, my granny, had like 4 strokes, and so on and so forth. And what I'm doing for that is I'm taking creatine, I'm taking trimethylglycine, I'm taking methylated B vitamins like methylfolate and methyl B12. I'm taking glycine, the amino acid. I'm eating enough protein, and I'm doing all of the things I'm supposed to do to support my methylation system to ameliorate those risks. Right now, I've told this to people in my family. They don't want to listen. They don't want to do genetic testing. They're like, this woo woo shit, whatever. Like, you do you, we do we, whatever, right? So you know I I don't want to sound like crass or anything, but like, they're putting themselves at risk. We have data, we have a lot of stuff to do to support that, right? So they're putting themselves at risk for that, especially if their nutrient status is not up to par. But if your nutrient status is up to par, you are not going to succumb to these things. Now, here's 100 years ago, that would have been fine and dandy. If you just eat well, you eat plenty of ancestral style foods, liver, meat, eggs, fruits and vegetables. And if it's clean food, that's awesome. Usually you'll be fine. And people used to live well into their 60s, 70s, and be quite healthy back in the day. If you survived, the first 5 years of, you know, because that was the biggest reason that for example, if you look at hunter gatherers, their life expectancy could be 35 years old because a lot of their kids, their infant mortality is like 25%. So that's what confounds that. But nowadays, the toxins in the environment, in the air, water, food, and so on, in our personal care products, these are causing a lot of damage. And at first, they don't cause damage. What they do is they cause us to use up our antioxidants. So when a toxin comes into your body,
Mm.
you are now using your antioxidant systems and your vitamins and minerals to neutralize and excrete these toxins. But here's what happens: over a long enough timeline, if these toxins are not reduced, and usually what happens is they just keep accumulating, we store them up in our fatty tissues and so on and so forth. We're living in big cities, so these toxins keep coming in, and we are eating food on a daily basis. Most people are not eating enough for what they need, but the body has storage in the organs, it has storage in the bones, in the collagenous tissues, joints, so it can take bits and pieces here and just kind of keep you going, and you're getting some nutrition. Some people take vitamins, so you keep going, but you're suboptimal, and let's say you're like 1-2% suboptimal every day. Well, over a year and 10 years, that compounds a lot, right? So gradually people start to like age faster, they have energy issues, they get sick more often, more infections, brain fog, and they're just their whole performance as a human is diminished over like as they age. And this is what you go to the doctor, and the doctor will tell you, well, you're getting old. And that's really not true, man. Like if you look at someone like a smart naturopathic doctor in their like 60s or 70s or 80s, they're like still very lucid. They can like recite fucking studies from 50 years ago, from 10 years ago, like case studies with their patients or clients. Like that's not the fate that we have to succumb to. It's not, it's a choice, right? That's kind of, let me stop there and let you kind of chime in.
Dude, I'm just like absorbing all of this. This is such like valuable information. It brings me back to I am thinking about this more and more, that in the truther community, the independent media, there's the whole rigmarole around like terrain theory versus germ theory. My mentality is it's both and you know I'm of the and you can tell me what you think of this because you're much more of an expert than I am. But what my intuition tells me is that when we are, as you say, optimized, when we are taking in everything that our body needs, and different bodies need different things, and that's where the testing can come in and stuff like that. But if our body has everything it needs to actually mount an effective immune response, we can literally overcome any pathogen. So rather than focusing on fear of this pathogen or fear of that pathogen, which of course is like, and again, I think people go a little bit overboard on this stuff and they throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, so there's the cartel and the parasitic class, they use the fear of these pathogens to control us. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything about like the existence of whether these things exist or not. But what it does mean is that they are going after one of our pillars of our immunity, which is, as you mentioned, the psychological health, psychological stress. And I just kept on like over and over again during the COVID project, I kept on like podcasting about it, talking about it. Like, if you're allowing yourself to get really stressed out and be in a state of fear, if
Mm-hmm.
you're glued to your screen all day, you're sitting right next to your router,
New
and you're just like,
variant, new variant.
yeah, bathing in EMFs and following the new variant like it's a new like
Yeah.
friggin' like Kendrick album, like, oh, the new one just dropped. Like that is you're playing with absolute fire. Whereas the mentality of like, let's make sure that we give ourselves everything we need to be optimum, everything we need to thrive. So that includes the vitamins, the minerals, the diet. It also includes exercise. I
Sunlight.
feel as though sunlight. Oh yeah, sunlight, and just taking care of our mental health, like positive mental attitude. That
Yeah.
is tremendously important, and that's something that I really experienced like firsthand. It's hard to like tell someone something. People have to experience things for themselves to really internalize it. And when I was in like my deepest, darkest depression, that was when I was getting the most sick all the time. I always felt like crap, you know, and I was eating the same food and everything. And I was even
Mm,
still exercising, but I was just I didn't feel optimistic. I didn't feel hopeful. I was in a pessimistic mind state. And that just kept on manifesting in my body over and over. It was like my body was trying to tell me, like, dog, you know,
yeah,
this is going to continue to occur until you get this lesson. And that just, it can't possibly be overstressed in my mind. Like the importance
absolutely.
of taking care when we talk about terrain theory, the entire terrain, which includes the psychological and the spiritual terrain. Your
Absolutely,
thoughts?
bro. Like even like most most people sit at home with their Wi-Fi router like a few meters or like 20 feet away from them. That's not okay. That's not a normal state of being, right? So there's so many things. And another one that's too many people still are doing is people like have the lights on, normal lights on, until the very moment that they turn them off and they go to bed. Like that, these things are completely unnatural. We're living completely unnaturally. Never mind the fact that, we're most of us, you either with wearing shoes, or like, oh, I'm on the first floor here in our apartment. Like we're not on the ground most of the time. And I've got this thing here connected to my arm. It's supposed to like earth me, right? So I have a couple of these, and I have an earthing sort of um like a little mat that we put on the bed, that's connected to the power line, and it's supposed to like do something. I'm not sure it's anywhere near the same as being on the beach and or on, in the field. But what I do, for example, like 1 to 2 hours before bed, I've got a couple of different pairs of red lensed blue light blocking glasses. And dude, I like when I make a list, let's say we're going on a trip or something, like I have my most important things, and my most important things be like, toothbrush, car keys. Like my red lensed blue light blocking glasses are like one of my top freaking things. You know what I mean? Like, but it's because I've educated myself about these things. So I have certain priorities, Like, for example, like when we go, if we were in a hotel room or something like that, the first thing I go in there is I find the damn router and turn the damn thing off, unplug the damn thing, like, and one thing that really pisses me off is like all of these air purifiers, all of these devices that have these like LEDs, like little blue LEDs. Like, if you're sleeping in a room with like little lights like that, and you get up at night to go to the bathroom, like that blue light is messing with your melatonin, it's messing with your circadian rhythm. So like think about just if it's 8 o'clock in the evening or 10 o'clock in the evening, and you go to bed, but now you've been messing with your melatonin production because there's too much blue light, because you're on your phone without some filter between your eyes. And let's not even get to the fact that your skin has photoreceptors. Like your skin actually can perceive if it's light or dark. So that's a whole other kettle of fish. But you got to do something at least. So anyway, if you go to bed and you've messed up your melatonin, like your chances are that it's a hormone. Chances are you're not gonna sleep so well. And if you don't sleep too well, you're gonna have a number of other hormonal issues, sort of downstream of that. You're gonna have too much cortisol at night that can mess you up, that can cause like you to break down muscle tissue, because cortisol, that's the purpose of cortisol and adrenaline, to break down muscle tissue, to
Mm,
quickly mobilize, get some glucose going through gluconeogenesis, so you can fight or flight or whatever you need to do.
mm,
So then you wake up, and then like your adrenals have been working overtime, and like your yeah, it can just have so many downstream effects, just being exposed to blue light at night, right? So that's just one thing. So I think, I guess if we want to talk solutions instead of just talking about problems, I think what we need to do for folks listening is we just as a species, or as whoever whichever ones of us are awake to this, what we have to just do is start thinking how to live more ancestrally. And
Mm,
that is there, in there lies the solutions. For example, like I wake up in the morning and I do some, like, you know, red light. I have a red light, it's a red light and near infrared light. So I do some, I shine it on my face and my balls and my back, and it's good. It can, the near infrared light can penetrate through the skin, so
mm,
it's good for like your skin elasticity. It can, um, it basically activates the mitochondria in the skin through this cytochrome C oxidase mechanism, whatever. The red light is good for your skin as well, for your eyes. I blast it in my eyes. I also have a near, sorry, I also have an infrared light that I shine on certain areas that hurt a little bit, you know, getting old now. So this infrared light, near infrared light, and red light is something that it's a nutrient, right? Light is a nutrient, and we are deficient very badly, most of us, in this nutrient. So when you're out in the sun, you're getting UV light, you're getting the full spectrum of light, you're getting blue light, but you're also getting near infrared light, and red light. And these, each of these things, it's like, if you look at a rainbow of different fruits and vegetables, each of these fruits and vegetables will have different phytochemicals that trigger specific genes, or, you know, activate certain genes, or have specific vitamins and other carotenoids and so on. So it's the same with the light spectrum that we get from the sun. So like I do this light, I read my books or whatever, meditate, and then I get out with my dog for like 40 minutes or up to an hour, and we walk. I walk without a shirt, even in the winter. And in Portugal, maybe 1 or 2 months out of the year I have to wear a t-shirt, but most of the time I'm like titties out, you know, shorts on. My dog is running around. She's black, so she's like, after 30 minutes, she's like, "Pop, take me home, man, take me home. It's bullshit. I can't do this anymore." But I'm
yeah.
loving it, bro. Like, you're getting no sunglasses, and, you know, like this. I believe if people did like spent 1 hour in the sun, direct sunlight, maybe 11 to 12 in the morning, I think a lot of people will get happier, will get healthier, because we are literally missing nutrients. It's, if you think of it as an, if you think of light as a nutrient. And here's another thing that there's been research done in um, folks that get a lot of blue light in the morning. Like, you get out, let's say you wake up, get out as quickly as possible into the daylight, even if it's a cloudy day, you're getting like thousands of times more light than you would at home with the brightest of lights. And that, getting that blue light as early as possible in the morning will reset your circadian rhythm. So folks that do that, they actually sleep better at night, so they produce more melatonin in the evening. So I think, you know, these are such basic things, and I know they're not sexy, they're not like this crazy new nicotinamide mononucleotide, these amazing new supplements, but I think it's free, you know. Like, and you already mentioned, like,
Yes.
breathing meditation, like
Yes.
with just breathing re-education, getting out in the sunlight, grounding ourselves, bro, drinking more clean water. Like, these things can have profound effects already on us. And then we can get into the more technical stuff, like detoxing yourself, because that's also important. But you can't put the cart before the horse, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to get into the nitty gritty of the detoxing techniques next. But I do want to just say, like, yes, amen. You know, getting back to our ancestral knowing, also having fun with it, you know, like that's the thing.
Yeah.
We can get so caught up in when you inform yourself about what's going on and you're always trying to optimize and stuff like that. Part of that is you have to be aware of what you're up against. You got to know like what you're dealing with in terms of the environment, all that kind of stuff, and then you figure out solutions for it. I think that the missing part of the equation for many people is having fun with it. Like, view it as like it's like a hobby. It's You're like collecting nutrients for yourself. You're enjoying yourself. Going out in the sunlight, walking your dog tits out, like, that's enjoyable. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit cold outside. That's kind of brisk. That's gonna like wake you up. It's like it's part of it. It ties in with not taking oneself too seriously and remembering to laugh. Like, I think that is so critical and essential as part of that all around terrain that we were discussing, that
Mm,
psychological and spiritual terrain. So yeah, just like fantastic tips. I think another aspect too is to not like necessarily beat yourself up if you can't, make all these things happen, or you wake up one time and you catch an LED light or whatever. Like this is not about like having guilt.
yeah,
There's so much of our mentality in the West is like framed by that Judeo-Christian guilt
yeah,
mentality,
yeah.
where people start to like internalize all this thing. It's like, oh, I fucked up, all this kind of stuff.
Mm,
But it's like it's nice to also have to understand why things happen. So it's, sometimes people say like, oh, I just can't sleep. And it's just like this thing that just happens. It like comes down from the ether that I just can't sleep. It's like, there's reasons for that. And there's things you can do to really assist that. My best friend of the show, Jonathan Glowacki, right now, while he's listening, I know he's like hollering in agreement because he's got his blue blocker glasses on. He's like,
nice.
he's religious about that. He's
Oh yeah,
always telling me over and over, and also breathing and the blue blocking glasses. So shout
nice.
out Jonathan. But yeah, I want to pivot now
Sorry,
into, oh yeah.
Raven. Just about the sleep stuff, bro. I had this issue when I was about 4 years ago, let's say, and I was waking up at 3 a.m. for weeks and weeks, and only until I did a stool test for pathogens did I realize that it was because of parasites. So a lot of there's you're absolutely right. There is always a reason if you're not sleeping. And two of the biggest reasons is people have parasites or something, some pathogen going on. And a lot of some of these are like parasites, they're more active at night. They're actually more active around the full moon. So if you have an itchy butt around the full moon, well, you got some parasite situation going on. And another one is actually surprisingly it's blood sugar dysregulation issues. So like my wife, actually she's had some horrendous insomnia after she gave birth. She was doing the breastfeeding thing at night, and that really messed her up with our kid waking her up random times every night. And it was literally every time, every night it's random. So that really messed up her nervous system. But she's been making a lot of progress on that, and we've noticed is if she doesn't eat enough carbs in the evening time, she will wake up at night and she have issues falling asleep. And that's the reason is because when you're let's say your liver, you have your glycogen in your liver, and it's kind of popping out glucose in the bloodstream for the brain, for everything else, for the normal bodily functions. If the liver starts kind of running a little bit low on glycogen, it starts kicking in gluconeogenesis, where it starts to break down protein, or it uses protein and other bits and pieces to create glucose. And a signal for that is cortisol. So it's a stress response in a way. So if you're waking up at night or you're having trouble falling asleep, it could literally be, are you eating enough carbs? Because I know a lot of folks now are on this kind of paleo, carnivore, keto thing, and I like them all, and they have their place. But I myself notice if I just have like a tablespoon of honey in the evening, that can really help. And in the morning, like this morning, I went for an hour walk, and then I came home and I had like two massive swigs of maple syrup, like, and there's nothing better to replenish your glycogen very quickly, like some honey or some maple syrup. And because I know after that walk, if I want to then like do some exercise, some push-ups a bit later on, or do some intellectual labor at the computer, I'm gonna feel like crap, and I'm not gonna want to do anything. It's because your glycogen is low, and your body is not in a state of abundance. You want to signal to your body that
Mm,
you're in a state of abundance. You know what I mean? Because if I had just like I had a pound steak, but if I had just had the pound steak, I would still have felt shit for the next few hours while my the gluconeogenesis replenishes my glycogen. Had I not had that maple syrup kind of before the steak, just kind of couple of
yeah, no,
pieces.
that's really helpful information. It's so interesting how everything always ties back in together. Like we have a tendency in our society to see everything as like linear, and we also have a tendency to see everything as being able like black or white, feast or famine. And it's like it the biodiversity of what you take in is so critical. You know what I mean? Like, yes, get the steak, but also get that maple syrup. Like, have an orange. Like,
Yeah.
don't. I just think it's really valuable to not be overly dogmatic about anything, basically, because nature flows. Like, nature does not, like you see a river like winds, and then
Yeah.
the Army Corps of Engineers will come in and they'll straighten out the river, and then the
Yes.
river will sicken and die because rivers don't want to be straight.
Yeah.
It's like that with our diet. Like, if you just go on a Jordan Peterson diet and eat nothing but steak and salt for the next 6 months, you're not giving yourself, like, it's that ancestral knowledge, like you say. It's like, why, if you think about folks living way back in the day, hunter gatherer society, why would they not get, it's hunt and gather. It's not,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And
you're not
like
just eating the mammoth.
you know, yeah, and you won't be able to like go and kill a mammoth every week. Like sometimes, the mammoths are too far. Now you have to like go like find
Tell me
fish.
about it, bro. These mammoths, it's like herding cats. Tell me.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's the whole point of again, we have to like put ourselves in the shoes. That's why it's worth a little bit of study. How did our ancestors, and I don't mean like in a general way, how did our ancestors live, like how did your ancestors live, how did my
Mm,
ancestors live? So my like, for example, I was lucky that I grew up, um I was born in Sofia in Bulgaria, but my grandma's village was like 20 kilometers away from Sofia. So I would be there and I would see her grow food, and we had goats there and pigs and chickens. Like one of my earliest memories is her just like putting her foot on a chicken's head and like chopping its head off, bro. And I felt no trauma. Like to this day I'm like, like even with like some type of medicine that I take, I'm going back, and these things were just daily life. They never traumatized me. I had much more trauma just from shitty things like my family members would say than to see these, like this is daily life and growing food. And so think about like I where I lived, what grew there, what animals could be hunted, what animals could be herded. And if you can do that for yourself, as the person listening, and stick to those foods that those folks ate and live the way they lived, I think you're I think you're 50 to 80% of the way there in terms of optimizing health.
it makes a lot of sense, man. It really does. And it comes back around to simplification, smart simplification, like not simplification, just reducing everything down, but getting out of your own way. I'm
Yeah,
constantly returning to this lesson with myself. Like, just get out of your own way,
love that.
bro. You know what I mean?
Love
Like,
that, bro.
let things flow.
Yeah,
Okay, so at the end of this conversation, we're going to tell folks, a little radio teaser here, we're going to tell folks about this amazing course that Christian it has just unveiled. But to kind of like set that up, I want to pivot now and talk about the world of detoxing. And I want to just kind of give listeners an idea of some of the stuff. You cover a lot of ground in your book, in your podcasts, and in your course. You cover a lot of ground. So, we have maybe like half an hour ish or whatever. I don't know how much time you have, but let's give listeners like a nice overview of some these more universal ideas for solution oriented. What can we do to detox our bodies on a daily basis? What can we do to fight back against dodge these fucking toxins out on these streets?
yeah. Well, look, bro, this is, I love talking about this stuff, and I think it's not the sexiest topic, and a lot of people might even roll their eyes listening to me talk about the stuff. And look, like it might be common knowledge, but is it common practice? This is what we have to ask ourselves. Yes, people know organic food, right, should be a staple. You need to either have distilled water or reverse osmosis water or some like uh you know pristine spring water. These are your kind of your two main pillars, for reducing the toxins that you ingest on a daily basis and that your family ingests on a daily basis. um Another thing is uh just having HEPA air filters, bro. This is another tip that I think people forget. Like have a HEPA air filter in each of your main rooms, your bedrooms, your living room, your office, right? Like I've got one here. It's only a 4-watt unit or 3.8 watts, so I have it running all the time because it's quite small. um So it's pushing, air through the filter constantly, because I have a lot of like storage stuff like plastics, dust, and crap, and I don't clean off it enough because it's a very low roof. So anytime I have to like do chores here, like I'm like a Quasimodo in the in the
You're doing
cathedral,
crab walk
yeah,
with your dust in
yeah,
the
yeah. And
corners.
like I told you, my I messed my backup, and then last year I putting my kid in the car, I also like pulled a ligament really badly, so it's only now beginning to heal. So anyway, HEPA air filters super important, right? So these are the basics, but like another thing is that you would think is a basic thing, but the amount of personal care products people use, even like, dude, like even my wife, it's such a sore spot for her. Like I can't even bring it up anymore because she just flies off the handle. She has several products that are not organic for her face and stuff, and like I keep like I every week I'm like trying to like, oh, this study here discovered that endocrine disrupt, like, and she's like, will you stop it? you know
You're trying to slide it into
and it's
conversation,
like,
all
yeah, did you
casual.
know that this here has an endocrine disrupting? But like I know a lot of women, and not just women, but like dudes are like with their colognes and their aftershaves, and you think these things are benign, but they're not. These things have endocrine disrupting chemicals in them, right? We're talking like, dude, the only thing I use is from the organic store. I use underarm sort of antiperspirant thing, and like I use an electric shaver, so I don't use shaving foam. I don't use aftershave. I don't use shampoo. I don't actually use shampoo in my hair. I have like a from the organic store. I have like a body wash
Hmm.
that I use a little bit of, and like like I wash my hands like three times a day with just organic soap from the organic store, and
Mhm.
then like we get some really high quality toothpastes with no fluoride, organic ingredients, or just like really good quality ingredients, and they're usually like two three $2-3 more if you go to iherb.com. So toothpaste, like, you don't like when you think about the products like the average person uses, it's, you know face creams and sunscreens, which is like the most one of the most toxic things. Like I see here, the Jesus Christ, because it's a tourist destination where we live, south of Portugal, and I see these kids and just these families like slathered with sunscreen, bro, and you just know, because the shit they sell here is horrendous. It's a whole different story if you buy it like from a specific brand that do non. So like we have to absolutely reduce our use of as much as possible of plastics, anything in styrofoam. Like if you get takeout food and it's hot, or if you're warming up things in plastic, that's a big no. You're
Mhm.
you're activating a lot of toxins. The fat in the food is what these toxins have an affinity to. The same way in your body, the same way like in animal products. So if you don't buy organic, and you're getting a lot of persistent organic pollutants that have an affinity for fatty tissue, for fatty fat, and like they get in your body, they get stuck in the fat, and they're very difficult to excrete, right? So um to help excrete that, I highly recommend people, in instead of going on your next holiday, just buy like a really nice little at home sauna unit. You can get them now for a few $100 or $1,000. There's some slightly more expensive ones, but having a sauna unit for your home is extremely important. And if you can't afford like $1,000 for a sauna unit, go to Amazon.com and get yourself 3 or 4 infrared lights, the light bulbs, and get some fixtures that can handle that heat that comes out of these, and just have a corner in your place, and position these like two in the back, two in the front, or something like that, and just have these blasting you for like 20-30 minutes a day, and that is enough to actually get a sweat going. So this is like highly, bro, you should do this as well. I have a video in my course um talking about that, but I basically just explained it. You go to Amazon, they're $15-20 for these light bulbs, infrared light bulbs. They usually use for like terrariums for your pet reptiles or whatever else, and yeah, so they do the job enough. If you position again, like one pointing at your chest, one at your belly, one at your lower back, whatever, something like that, just to get yourself sweating. You want to be sitting down, lying down in a quote unquote rest and digest or parasympathetic state, and have some sweat going at least 2 3 times a week for at least 20 to 30 minutes, right? This is one of the most sort of valuable tips I can give to people. And I just gave you a solution on how to do it for like $100 or less, right? But this is super important because a lot of these toxins that are known as persistent organic pollutants, POPs, so phthalates or organochlorine pesticides like DDT that's still around from the 70s, even though it was banned in the 70s. Um, PBDE, so polybrominated diphenyl ether. So these are things like
Really rolls off the tongue.
it really just rolls off the tongue. They're flame retardants, and funny enough, like we went from PVC. Now people stopped buying PVC. Now you're buying like polypropylene, polyethylene stuff. But the polypropylene totes I have for storage here, they still have like flame retardants in them. So you think you're, plastics, basically we have to avoid them as much, but there's a ton of this stuff inside us. There's a lot of these sort of, again, they're like when I say lipophilic, I mean they're lipo, fat, philic, loving, so fat loving. They have an affinity for our fatty tissues, so they're in our fats, and they're very difficult to make water soluble, which is how the body detoxifies things. It will activate, it will attach like some molecule to a toxin, that activates it, and then it will try to attach like the glutathione antioxidant or something else. So it tries to do that to create it in a shape that it makes it water soluble, so then it can be excreted. It's very difficult for these things to become water soluble, which is why they're persistent, right? That's why they're difficult to excrete. So the best bet you have to get them out of you is to just sit there, sweat as long as you can comfortably sweat, as often as you can do it per week, and towel off as you're sweating, and then get in the shower and
Mhm.
rinse yourself off. But don't forget, if you're gonna filter your water that you drink, you got to do that, obviously. Don't forget to go and spend $50 on a shower filter.
Mm.
This is another thing most people forget. I guarantee most people's houses you go into, they don't have a shower filter. And this, again, for 50 to 30 to 40 to 50 to $100, you can get a shower filter to get that chlorine out of your water. So these are some very basic things, right? And then you can get a little bit more in depth, but the basic gist of it is, you folks need to start remineralizing their body. So a lot of people,
Mm.
if when we run um, various types of nutritional status tests like hair testing, you can see like the levels are very very low from what, and these lab ranges that the labs have are from like some labs are working, since the 80s, and they can see that the actual ranges for people are going down and down and down. So people are in kids, like newborns and everything, like they're super depleted. And these minerals, what can happen is, for example, zinc, if you're deficient in zinc, it you can take up more cadmium. If you're deficient in calcium, your body will take up more lead and certain other toxic metals. If you're deficient in iron, another thing that can predispose you to take up more things. So when you start remineralizing your body, when you start adding zinc, selenium, all of these things, manganese. First of all, some of these are directly involved in detoxification. Others are directly involved in the immune system,
Mm.
and so on and so forth. So you are adding things, and then the body starts to push the cadmium, the mercury. For example, selenium, taking selenium, that directly can bind mercury. It's also,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So because I have four mercury amalgams that I'm getting taken out in a couple of months time. uh I've been taking selenium like a shitload, bro, just to kind of help to. And I notice I do feel, I have been feeling actually better, like I'm more stable in
Mm.
terms of my mind state, taking more selenium. But it has a lot of other benefits, like, again, like, so manganese, selenium, zinc, these are involved directly in the detoxification system, you know. So it's very important at the very least to get like a high quality multivitamin that has good quality B vitamins and a bunch of these minerals. That's like that would be like a very very basic simple baseline. And one brand I like is Dr. Mercola's multivitamin. That's not cheap, but it's high quality, you know, because the last thing you want to do is spend like $30 on some garbage that's like the wrong forms of the vitamins and minerals, you know.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's a really big one, getting the minerals in the body so that your body can start like pushing out the toxins. You need energy and you need nutrients in order to detoxify things. And most people, they might be getting the energy in terms of calories, but the quality of those calories is a toxin. If it's a lot of sunflower oil, soybean oil, you know, sugar, like you're getting the calories, but they're in a toxic form. And if you're not getting enough nutrients, the cofactors to support all the enzymes and like little bits and pieces, well, you're just you're going the wrong direction. So you talked about the spectrum. We're on the spectrum. I actually have an idea for a book. Please, if anyone is listening, don't steal my idea, but I have an idea for a book called The Spectrum of Health. And then we can think about on this end, you're, you know, you're vibrantly healthy and perfect optimal health, which is difficult for most to achieve, if not everyone. And then here on this side, you know, you're like extremely debilitated. So in between is where you find yourself. And every meal, every drink you take, everything you
Mm.
do either pushes you in this direction or the other direction. So the spectrum of health, you're either going in that spectrum or that spectrum. And don't forget you have entropy that you're fighting against at the same time. So you have the aging process, which itself causes oxidative damage and other damage that it does not get repaired as well. So that causes the aging. So you're fighting against that as well. So you know it's all about the every single choice we make on a daily basis. Not to say that you have to be a saint. Like we all have our, you know, things that we like to partake in and stuff like that. But you know, if this is important to you, these are some good jumping off points.
Yeah, I love the way that you collate information and present it. You present it in a very
Mm.
digestible manner, which I think is really nice because a lot of times you can get lost in the weeds on this stuff. And like you say, like Christian, when talking to Christian, there's levels to it. Like you got like you're like, okay, how technical, how nitty gritty do you want to get? Because you can get into the words with so many syllables that you don't know what they mean. But I just like how you kind of describe things in a way that like my listeners, people like myself, that we can kind of understand. The so I want to talk about the air filter.
Yeah.
Are those like super expensive? You said they're
No.
called HEPA. Okay.
HEPA, yeah, high efficiency particulate air purifier. If you just
Okay.
type in HEPA HEPA in Amazon, HEPA filter. No, bro, they're like, I mean, everything has gotten more expensive in the last three
Right.
years, as we know. Um, for for 100 to 200 bucks, you should be able to get a unit that should um should be good enough for like a normal living room or a normal bedroom.
Okay.
And for smaller spaces, $50, you should still be able to find something.
And it's like, what? How do you put a price tag on your health? How do you put a price tag on the very air that you breathe? So,
Yeah.
I live in a big dirty city, one of the dirtiest, one of the biggest, one of the dirtiest, and I live in the industrial district of it. So, like, I know that when I'm out and about, it's just pretty much unavoidable. You know, like there's trucks idling everywhere. I have a paper mill close. It's like sometimes you go outside, it just like smells like this bizarre, depending on which way the wind is blowing and stuff like
Shit,
that.
bro.
So I'm gonna be getting the air filter for my apartment, and I also have a lot of house plants in my apartment. I try to make my apartment like a little microbiome, like a little
Mm.
oasis here in the desert. Is there anything, or what would you say to people like when you're out and about in the city, like out on the town when you can't avoid it? Like what can people do to mitigate some of the air pollutants that they're taking in,
Oh, Jesus
if
Christ.
anything?
Bro,
You're
by
like,
the way,
sorry, dog, you're screwed.
yeah, it's like, yeah. Listen, Raven, I'm sorry in advance to tell you this, but there was a study that they did in Phoenix, and people living in Phoenix. Yeah, I was you heard me talk about this on Charlie's.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, people living in Phoenix had a 15% chance of mortality, higher mortality for cardiovascular and a couple of other things. I can I have it downloaded here. I can send it to you, bro. But my first thing I would there in my course I talk about there. I saw this on Amazon. There's this HEPA mask. It's pretty ugly, but I if it was me, like if I had to go to Lisbon and be out in Lisbon here for like a day or two, for $25 I would get this mask. It's basically a HEPA mask. So you're breathing when you breathe, you're pushing in the air through the the HEPA filter.
Hmm.
So if I was like on a bicycle to get to work, I would wear something like this, bro. Like I used to live in Dublin, Ireland, which is a million, 1.1 million, something like that. And I used to like get a bike to drive it to the tram, and then I would, you know, get in the tram and then walk to the like depending on different jobs I was working, or I would walk in the traffic. So I was biking, cycling a lot, and have no, basically this information that I cover in my course. This is basically all the information I wish I had known like 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, bro. Because I would not be doing so many, I would be doing so many things differently, right? If I was in Phoenix, bro, I would be doing sauna. I would get those for first of all, if you're in traffic or if you're out and about in the city, the best thing I can tell you is just breathe through the nose, because you the nose will filter more toxins. But there's a lot of these small particles that just they're they're too small for even a HEPA filter to catch, right? They're under
Mm,
2.5 microns in size. So
mm,
there's not really much you can do. The best thing you can do is just support your detoxification system by eating enough protein, getting the vitamins, the minerals that I talk about, and doing serious detoxes, bro. Like you have to, it has to become like a hobby, like the way you lift weights. Like let's say you do your 40-minute session of kettlebells or whatever. I would finish off sitting in my. I would create a little corner in your wherever you do your weights with two, three, or four of these infrared lights, and I would
mhm.
just sit there, finish off your session, or when you wake up in the morning, when you do your meditation, just click the lights on, so you're meditating in your sauna, in your little kind of makeshift sauna. So I would start doing that, bro, on a daily basis, because um well, I mean, daily basis is ideal, but I know most people can't do that. But if you can aim for like 3, 4, 5 times a week, I would, I would have to, have to say that's one of the most important things, bro. You know?
Yeah, and that I know a lot of listeners live in like big dirty cities, you know what I mean? I just always think about that, like how we can help to mitigate these things. It's so funny. You're I'm gonna have one of these HEPA masks, and then I'm gonna run into like people in the truther community. They're gonna be like, "Oh, you really bought the propaganda, didn't you?" I'm like, "Bro, it's a HEPA, it's a HEPA." I'm like yelling it through the mat. Yeah, man, that guy really bought into it. I'm
That
like, "I have
guy's
a
like on.
podcast.
That guy
Listen
is
to my
on.
podcast."
That guy's on like 6 boosters and 16 super boosters. But
um,
listen, I'm sorry.
yeah.
It's important to not nocebo people, right? But I also think that we can't bury our head in the sand, right? So I love you, bro, but because I love you, I have to tell you the truth, right? But I also know that the you know you don't want to like frighten people, because like that alone, that stress can be immunosuppressive, just as an example, right? But the excuse me, the one of the most deleterious things from from pollution, from exhausts and stuff, is the diesel exhaust particles. So they 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 have immunosuppressive properties on certain immune cells, right? So that means that when you breathe the stuff in, it enters your body, it can actually damage or inhibit certain immune cells that can cause an immune imbalance that can predispose you to, getting sick more often, and like taking longer to heal from this, that, and the other. So when there's nothing we can do about where we live, then we have to really double down on the other things that I mentioned. So supporting our detoxification system. And I cannot stress this enough, that eating enough protein, high quality protein, is super important. Because a lot of, you might hear, plant foods, they're full of antioxidants, stuff like that. It's a little bit of a misnomer. They A lot of these things, they cause you to upregulate antioxidant enzymes, but those antioxidant enzymes in the liver, they are chiefly made of amino acids, or a number of those antioxidants are. So a lot of most enzymes are mainly made of protein, amino acids, and they have some cofactors like vitamins and minerals. But like glutathione, the master antioxidant in our cells, that is actually the thing that conjugates toxins that have been activated by phase one. In phase two detoxification, this glutathione, sometimes we use taurine, we use glycine, occasionally, we can even use glutamine. These are all amino acids, and these amino acids, the best source of those is animal proteins. Meat. Obviously, liver is a good source of various nutrients as well as protein. So meat, eggs, dairy, things like that. High quality pastured stuff like that. Oh, it has to be high quality, of course, because you don't want to be taking more toxins. But it's clearly goes against the whole of what we're trying to achieve here. So the I cannot stress, and I honestly have to like repeat myself, because this is where I think a lot of people health issues are coming from. People are not eating enough protein, because there's a lot of propaganda that protein now can cause cancer, or you're eating too much protein. It's absolute bullshit. I mean, yes, in whatever experiments they did with like worms or whatever, yes, they could have done it. But you're much more likely to like break a leg and like die of osteopenia, and like injure yourself, and whatever else, because of loss of muscle mass as you age, that then you're going to get cancer. And it's also the a big factor is the quality of the protein, right? So anyway, most people should be trying to get about a gram of protein per pound of body mass, right?
Are you
So if
talking about
you're,
every day
yeah,
or
on
okay,
average, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So it's actually not as easy as you would think, but when you think about it, like your skin, your eyes, your hormones, your enzymes that you digest things with, like cells, like most of the stuff in your body is made from protein, and a little bit of some sugars, like DNA that has some sugars, ribose, whatever, and fats. So high quality fats are obviously important, because they make up cell membranes and stuff like that, and you need cholesterol for sex hormones and stuff like that. But a lot of like this thing that you see, that's okay, a lot of it's water, but a lot of that is protein, right? So we're constantly, when you're under a lot of toxic burden, you're constantly using these antioxidants, which again, glutathione, that's glycine, um, glutamate, and cysteine, right? So these three amino acids make glutathione, which is the master antioxidant of your cells. And this is the most powerful antioxidant we make. And this is what does a lot of clearing out of heavy metals, toxic chemicals, including bacterial toxins. It's used in the immune system. So if you want to support your if you want to support your detoxification system, you want to support your glutathione production. And I talk a lot about this in my course and my podcast and everywhere, because it's and my book as well, because this is one of the most important things people have to understand. And to support glutathione, you need to either eat enough protein or take the precursors for glutathione, which if you go to like something like iherb.com, you can get glycine, the amino acid, and you can get N-acetylcysteine, or you can get preformed glutathione, reduced glutathione, which is a bit more expensive. And I prefer to just like take NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and glycine. These two, like as soon as, like, let's say I do an organic acids test on a client, and they are showing that their glutathione is close to the top of the range, which means that it's it's deficient. the marker for glutathione is close to the top of the range, meaning that it's deficient. As soon as I see that those are the two supplements I recommend. To be honest with you, most people that have some type of health issue have more often than not have a deficiency in this very important antioxidant. So these are the things I would recommend people look into.
Cool. Yeah, I actually I follow Dr. Judy Mikovits, her newsletter, and one of her
Hmm.
newsletters, she was talking about dimethylglycine, which is that
Dimethyl. Oh,
I
okay,
guess it's
yeah,
like a form of that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the precursor, like
So
you were saying.
so there's dimethylglycine and there's trimethylglycine, and I think it's a little bit easier to find the trimethylglycine, and I take that, bro. I take that every day. It's also another good one because it has other benefits because of the methyl groups, and these methyl groups can be used in detoxification, but in a lot of other stuff. Like if you have like this genetic defect that I said I had, the MTHFR, taking methyl donors like trimethylglycine or dimethylglycine helps to kind of run those pathways, the methylation pathways. That's another good one. But like you can get quite advanced with this stuff, but I was just like giving out the basics. So N-acetylcysteine and glycine. Then you can get more advanced. You can take like alpha lipoic acid. You can take trimethylglycine. But you before you get into those, you have to be doing the basics. So B vitamins, uh, zinc, calcium, magnesium, selenium, and these are just your. It's like um, it's like you have to know the alpha, what analogy to use, you have to basically walk before you can run. So the basic nutrients like zinc, calcium, the vitamins, minerals, these will be like your basics. And then your N-acetylcysteine and your glycine, that will be kind of the next level. And then you can do trimethylglycine, alpha lipoic acid. You can then start doing specific targeted support for, let's say you have like brain fog, or like you feel like you your mind is not what it used to be. Then you can use like nootropics type stuff. For example, I have here sunflower lecithin, which
Mm.
is a source of phosphatidylcholine and a bunch of other stuff. And this phosphatidylcholine is used for like cell membranes in the brain, and it can help you kind of like restore the damage there. And you can take it very far, but those would definitely be the first things to look into.
And of course, let your food be your medicine. So, maybe you don't have money or you don't have the patience to be acquiring all these different supplements. But my understanding is something like organic beef liver has a lot of this stuff, like right there.
Oh
Am I
yeah,
correct? And so and like with zinc, for example, like one mistake I made, because people always say like, gotta get your zinc, gotta get your zinc. And then I was taking zinc and making myself sick because it's actually a metal. Like when you're just taking like too much zinc on an empty stomach or something like that, like that's the other aspect of it is like you I don't believe you need like a ton of zinc. You just need enough zinc. So I think
yeah.
that's why maybe it's ideal to try to get it through the food because it's kind of a little bit packaged better for your body.
Oh, for sure, man, for sure. Like food is the best thing. For example, choline, you can get choline from eggs and liver. Like I every few days I'll just drink like 3 or 4 raw eggs. That's a good source of B vitamins, choline, some zinc in there. Beef liver, chicken. Like I can't really find organic beef liver here, but we buy organic chicken liver, and it's like super cheap actually. It's like $5-6 for like 3 or 4 little livers, some necks,
Mhm.
a few hearts, two or three hearts, which is a great source of coenzyme Q10, and zinc. The liver is a good source of copper. There's a bit of zinc in there, and a bunch of like most nutrients are in liver. So that's a superfood. This is like nature's multivitamin. I try to eat liver 2-3 times a week. I had liver this morning and yesterday. So, um, this is one of those things where you have to just like, if you can't find good, grass-fed, pastured liver products, go to like look for like a good company that does desiccated organs.
Yeah, that's one thing. I am blessed. You know, there's pros and cons wherever you are, and luckily I do have access. There's a lot of really awesome organic local butcher
Mm,
shops around
awesome.
Phoenix. What do you think about? I went on a kick. I think it was a year and a half or so ago. On my buddy was first he was telling me about fermented liver, also known as high liver,
Yeah,
and then I started eating raw liver as well. And I have to say that like I did feel high, especially when I did
really.
the fermented liver. I did it's like a drug. It was wild.
Wow.
It's like colors were brighter, and I was just like, "Whoa, dude! Like I know I'm microdosing, but this is like a little extra." But then what happened was, I think I have a tendency to go kind of hard in the paint, and I got sick. Like I got really. It wasn't. It was like a fever where my body just like had. It took like 24 hours, but I was like running a really high fever, and then I was okay. And I kind of like took my foot off the gas. On what are your thoughts on raw or fermented meats and organ meats?
So I was doing raw carnivore for a while, and what happened then is one day I was just kind of had like a fever situation myself, and that's when some health stuff gradually started happening. And it was when I ran that stool test on myself. That was early 2019, I think. That's when I saw I had a couple of parasites. So
Mm,
I stopped eating raw after that. I occasionally, like if I defrost liver, because I buy a few batches of a few packs, I put it in the freezer, and if I defrost it, I can sometimes take some raw liver and eat it. No problem with that. If you want to eat raw meat, you definitely want to keep it in the freezer for like 2 weeks, because that will kind of kill off parasites and stuff like that.
okay, that's a
Uh,
great tip.
yeah, so that's what I recommend doing, and I do feel like certain B vitamins are definitely heat labile, or whatever that word is. So when you cook something, you're it's a trade off. Like you're killing potential pathogens, but with a lot of these B vitamins, you are reducing. Um, you're denaturing certain things, certain proteins. So it's that's why I try to never overcook my foods, especially my meat, right? But again, in the middle of the liver, when it's not overcooked, you're gonna get B vitamins in there as well. But so high liver, I've considered trying it. I was following some carnivore guys. I just honestly don't have the balls. After that incident with the parasites, because
Yeah.
I had giardia, and I had Blastocystis hominis, which is actually a protozoa that can travel. Apparently, it can travel up your bile duct and go into your liver, right? So
Ugh.
it can camp out in your liver. That's why um, the my mentor on the functional diagnostic nutrition course, when we were reviewing my stool test results, that's when he introduced me to the liver gallbladder flush. Said you might want to do a couple of gallbladder flushes, because some of these parasites can camp out either in the gallbladder or the liver. So again, freeze the meat for a couple of weeks, and then it's no problem. um High liver, one day I would try it for sure. I'm very much into fermenting stuff, like a big fan of like sauerkrauts and kimchi's, doing them myself, and like carrots and stuff like that. And I've got a few things on my balcony there that definitely have their own ecosystem at this point, that I should probably like release into the wild. But the high liver, bro, I don't know, like you gotta have balls for that as well.
And you got to know what you're doing too. So that when my buddy, who really like, he's been doing the high liver for a hot minute, he's got the whole technique down. He uses very specific equipment. He knows exactly how to do it. When he gave me his stuff, that was when it was like all good. I was just like feeling like $1 million, like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. Colors are brighter. And it was when I tried to ferment my own that I got the fever. Now, I don't know if that was necessarily what caused it, but I do know that I think this is important too to touch on. Fevers are just your body. That's like your body taking care of business. You know what I mean? Like fevers, they're they kind of suck, I guess, and they can be kind of like intense, but that's like a blessing in a way, because when you're having a fever, that means your body is taking care of business.
I,
It is
I
getting
would
rid of shit.
I would add though that you may want, if you've never done a parasite cleanse, you may want to do a parasite cleanse just prophylactically. I do a couple of times a year since 2019, a couple of times a year in the spring and in the autumn. I do basically like a. It depends on a lot of factors because I've already done a massive cleanse after I saw the parasites that I had. Um, so that was like a massive like 3 4 months type of protocol, and then I followed it up in the autumn with like a 2 week kind of uh mini protocol. So I do like 2 3 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks, twice a year, just to kind of, if there's something overgrowing, because I had a lot of candida and I had a few other opportunistic pathogens and dysbiotic bacteria. So just in case something is overgrowing, you want to just kind of knock it down and give a chance for your commensal microbiota to crowd out the other guys, because they're they compete for nutrients, for food, for space. So sometimes you just need to like uh kill a few pathogens with some herbs, with some high dose probiotics, and then let the other guys kind of take over the space, so they're not getting bullied around by the other guys.
Okay, word. And you talk about in your course, you talk about how you can do a parasite cleanse, I believe, and
I
how you
cover
can do. Yep.
Yeah, I cover an hour or so on the gut, because having a healthy gut is incredibly important for proper detoxification and elimination. Because if your gut is leaky, inflamed, and so on, then a lot more toxins are going to be able to get through, those gaps between the intestinal cells. So I just cover some of the mechanisms of autoimmunity, why, what dysbiosis is, what intestinal permeability is, why it's important to not let that happen, and just some. I cover some supplements for gut health. I cover basically my twice a year protocol that I just mentioned, what I do, the basic gist of it, and then just some basic things like that. But I feel like the gut is another important area, so I will probably do another course on the gut specifically, to be not as comprehensive as this course, to be maybe 4 or 5 hours. But I feel like I'm getting a lot of lately, a lot of folks are coming to me with gut problems, so I feel like, oh, it's another massive area where people need help, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. How you doing on time? You got like 10, 15 more minutes or?
Bro, I'm pretty good, bro. I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Before we, I want to let everyone know about how they can get your course and a little bit more about the course, but I do want to touch on the gallbladder cleanse before we get to that. So I was listening to your interview on Charlie Robinson's podcast. You were talking about the gallbladder cleanse, and something I always pay attention to little synchronicities or my intuition. My intuition was telling me, like, pay attention to this. Oh, this is important. And so I just wanted to ask you a little bit, talk about what is a gallbladder cleanse and why is it so important?
Right. So you can call it a number of different things. So it's called the gallbladder flush, the liver cleanse, the liver gallbladder flush, or the liver gallbladder cleanse. But basically, what this is, it's a 6-day process where you take malic acid in the form of either apple juice or a malic acid supplement that you can buy online. And the first 5 days is your preparatory phase, and you just you just kind of try to eat a light, clean diet during these 5 days. Try to avoid things like alcohol, coffee, sodas, fried foods, dairy, um, and you basically what the malic acid does is it softens the gallstones in your gallbladder and your liver. And if you think you don't have gallstones, oh, only sick people have gallstones, well, I got news for you, right? um like, I got news for you. Basically, the reason, and I'm gonna try and do like a presentation, like a 5 10 minute presentation on this, just to kind of elucidate it more clearly, and that'll be on my website at some point. But just to kind of summarize why I believe most people have gallstones in their liver. So the the liver the liver cells, the hepatocytes, they create bile. That bile is kind of being secreted, and some of that goes into the gallbladder, and it gets stored there, like an ounce or two gets stored in the gallbladder. But you create during the course of a day, I think it's up to like a liter of bile. You know.
Wow. I didn't know
Yeah.
we made that much of it. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I think last time I looked, in the last week, it's like 600 to 1,000 milliliters a day.
Damn.
Um, and here's the thing. So bio is not only there. So many people know that bio is used to emulsify fats to help us digest fats, but bio is also um, um, it's an antibacterial, right? So it also helps to sterilize food that's in the small intestine. So if something goes into the stomach, but then some bacteria survive the hydrochloric acid of the stomach, and they get into the small intestine, the bile is there as like a second line of defense. And so it has as a quick aside, I believe this is where a lot of people's gut problems are also coming from. You've heard that recently, the last 10-15 years, there's been a lot of SIFO and SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and
Mm,
small intestinal fungal overgrowth, and this is a fairly recent phenomenon, at least in terms of its recognition in the kind of medical slash scientific community. But I believe this is where uh, this is a key piece of the puzzle of why people's guts are so messed up. The bile is supposed to, get down these like tiny little bile ducts and then to larger bile ducts, and it gets secreted through the common bile duct into the into the small intestine. Now, I already mentioned what bile is used for. It has another function. It has other functions, I'm sure, that I haven't looked into too deeply. But another function is, I mentioned that we have this phase two detoxification where we take the transformed toxin during phase one detoxification, and we conjugate it with the glutathione molecule. This now makes it water soluble and quote unquote inert, so that we can excrete it. And a common way for that to get excreted is into the bile. And
mm,
the bile now goes down either into the gallbladder or into the small intestine. So if you have toxins that are conjugated in the bile,
mm,
uh, they they go down the small intestine, but the at the end of the excuse me, at the end of the small intestine, we have biorecirculation. Up to 95% of the bile gets recirculated by the body because
mm,
it's trying to conserve resources. The problem is a lot of these toxins get recirculated back. So it's like a loop. For example, methyl mercury, I believe it was. There's various kinds of mercury, but methyl mercury, up to or more than 70% of methyl mercury gets recirculated back through this bile, this enterohepatic circulation. So the intention of the body is to stick the toxins in the bile. The bile eventually, goes into the small intestine, then goes into the large intestine, and then forms the stool, and then we poop it out. That's the intention. But because of this mechanism of recirculating bile to recycle it, a lot of these toxins are recirculating. So this is where I'm kind of speculating a little bit. I believe why uh, most people have these stones, and it will only take you to do like a couple of gallbladder flushes to actually see the evidence in your toilet.
mhm,
Um, but any client of mine or friend or family member that's done it has seen stones, right, of various different colors. Um, so these, these, I believe what could be happening is when the bile goes into the small intestine, these toxins, they kind of coagulate or they create these stones. So it's like a almost like a defense mechanism for the body, where it kind of creates a stone, like the way we sequester things in fatty tissue or whatever else. So it's like you kind of package it up and put it out of the way in a way, so it's not like recirculating or getting in that damaging other tissues or other cells. So the problem is when these stones are in the liver, they can block the bile ducts, those tiny little bile ducts where the bile is supposed to flow down into the
Okay.
small intestine. Now, what can happen then is the bile flow gets obstructed, and the small stones become bigger stones. But we also don't have enough bile making its way down into to help digest our food. So people not digesting food very well, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, small intestinal fungal overgrowth, and so on and so forth, right? So I believe, so that's kind of the mechanism how these stones get formed, and I believe this is like a big reason why folks are having a lot of digestive and gut stuff. And I notice myself after I do a gallbladder flush, the I definitely digest food much better. My stool is of a much nicer color. You know, there's it should be like a kind of like a brownish sort of color. It definitely it looks better. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
like everything. And I know it's not the sexiest topic, but you know these are very important things for one's health. You know?
This is what you come to the BMP for, folks. Multicolored gallstones and the hue you want to see in your stool. This is
Yeah,
the good
it's
stuff.
and you shit easy, yo. You shit. It's no. These are super important things. Like, dude, like when we had our dog, when we adopted our dog and we had our baby, like the first few weeks, the thing we were most obsessed with was their poop. Because our dog had a lot of parasites, these like big ass white worms. Oh, it was disgusting. And
Yeah.
you know, with a kid, you want to make sure they're pooping. But this is like one of the most important things. You know how they say, yeah, death. Was it death begins in the colon, all disease begins in the gut? It kind of is true. So you're this, although this is a procedure that will help you to, you know, improve the function of your liver, which is the second most complex organ after the brain in the body, and it's involved in everything, in like breaking down hormones and like digestion or assimilation of food, and just like the liver is so incredibly important for everything. And if you can improve the function of your liver, not only will your detoxification systems work better, but your overall body, like just all you have to do is go online and read positive reports from people that have done like a few gallbladder flushes. You will just like be like, okay, well, this can't all be like woo woo BS. I have to like, and I think the people that are ready for it, they'll be like, oh, this like I need to do this.
Absolutely, yeah. I believe you pay attention to that little intuition, that little inner voice. There's a mysterious aspect to all of this stuff, and we will be guided to. You just said we're going woo now. We're going full, but we will. There's certain ways in which you'll be guided to like certain information. Certain people will come into your life when you need to. People will listen to this episode when they need to hear it. That all that
Hmm.
type of stuff, it plays into it. Really quick before we wrap up, what do you think about like there's a lot of hype on certain foods that are like renowned as sort of excellent at helping the body to get rid of toxins. Like for example, I've heard seaweed, I've heard cilantro, and I've heard parsley. Is there
Hmm.
any truth to that? That these things I've heard. This is what I've heard on the street. Cilantro helps with it can cross the blood-brain barrier and it helps to detox your brain. And seaweed supposedly can help with like heavy metal toxins and stuff. What do you think about that?
I've actually I've got some research that I'm still going through. I'm gonna add some videos to the course on the best research plant foods that can support phase one and phase two detoxification. From what I understand, cilantro, I think it can chelate metals. I honestly don't know much about. I don't know much about. To be honest, I'm more of a. I'm more like if you had to like ask me like what diet, what if I had to pick one diet to live with for the rest of my life, it probably would be the carnivore diet. So I'm more digging into like the amazingness of the amino acids. So each of these, so for example, like meat products, or animal products, like they have carnitine, they have which is, you can't find it in the plant world. They have coenzyme Q10, they have creatine, taurine, which is an amazing amino acid that can do a ton of different things. It's heart protective. So regarding these plant foods, I'm not done enough research, but from what I understand, I believe a lot of the beneficial mechanisms from a lot of these foods, for example, turmeric, the curcumin in the turmeric, it's it initially acts as a pro-oxidant, which causes you to upregulate these detoxification enzymes in the body, right? So
Hmm.
it's like the effect of hormesis, which is basically like exercise, sauna, cold exposure, even like a small amount of alcohol, which is technically a poison. It through the hormetic effect, it's the principle of what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So exercise again, heat, cold exposure. So these foods, they seem to activate genes or enzymes, or cause genes to express enzymes that upregulate our detoxification machinery. So I'm sure some of these have specific mechanisms that they can chelate certain things, or they can inhibit certain things, they can upregulate certain things in the cells. But it's just a massive rabbit hole that I'm yet to, you know, go down into.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and everything complements other things, like with the biodiversity of the media we consume and the biodiversity of the information we consume. I do really feel that your work provides an amazing foundation to really start. And it's the way that you put
Thank
all the
you, bro.
information together, it's the way that you present it in a way that morons like myself can actually
Ah, come
understand.
on,
You
bro.
don't have
You're
to
like,
have like a PhD or some shit. And I
wait,
just,
I thought you had a pretty huge dick. What? Wait,
We've gone
this
almost the whole
PG-13 show.
You're like, you had to get one in before the end. I love it. But
Cunnilingus
yeah.
Rising.
But yeah, so
You can censor that one out. Jesus Christ.
no, you can say whatever you want. This is the barbarian lair, man. This is like we're around the fire. We just
I
slaughtered the
love that.
mammoth and we're just friggin' shooting the shit and talking story over here. So there are no
Love that, bro.
boundaries on the Barbarian Noetics podcast. But so yeah, so I wanna let folks know, they've
Mm.
heard you speak. You've given a lot of amazing, good information, this universal knowledge. People are gonna want to go deeper. They're gonna want to hear, your book, I can't stress this enough, is fucking awesome. I
Thank you, bro.
Christian sent me the
Mm.
PDF when he reached out to me, and I was just like blown away. Like this is an amazing resource.
Thank you, bro.
And so anyway, so tell folks a little bit about this course and how they can go about getting it, and then we'll give folks the coupon code as well.
Yeah, well, it's the courses. I basically gave all the best information from the course, so y'all don't need to get it. Just re-listen to this. No, it's the course is like 30 at this point. It's 13 hours of video of me just talking about everything. Basically, the way I frame it is, this is the most important information you need to know. There's a lot of other information you could know, and you may eventually, come to know, but this is the most important information you need to know. And so I covered the basics. What is a toxin? Why are toxins bad? What are the mechanisms? What are the, immunotoxic, neurotoxic, endocrine disrupting, mitochondrial toxicity, all the effects of these toxins, right? So it's a little bit of a crash course in that sense, where you will understand why it's so important. Because I feel like when you understand why you need to do, it's like in my autism book, the first half of the book, I explain what are the health issues that these autistic children are suffering from, based on the uh, clinical and scientific evidence. um, and then the second part is all the things that parents should do. So the way I frame it there is, if I don't tell you what the problem is that we're trying to solve, all of these things are going to seem very excessive to you, like organic diet and all these supplements and toxin reduction. So it's the same way with this course. It's I I I, I basically give you the problem. This is the problem. This is what toxic exposure, if left unchecked over a long enough period of time, can cause or contribute to, including everything from Alzheimer's to autoimmunity to, dementia, to everything, basically cancer. Jesus Christ, just you can't name one thing that toxins are not implicated by this time. And the thing is that you have to remember that um, very little research is actually being done, because who's gonna want to sponsor this research? Certainly not the companies creating this. Certainly not the agencies that are covering up for these companies' atrocities, right? So anyway, then I covered the basics: air, reducing toxic exposures from air, water, food, personal care products. Um, and then we get into the more advanced stuff. So the supporting, so I call it the three pillars. The first pillar is reducing toxic exposure. You have to turn off the tap. Second pillar is you have to support your body's innate detoxification system, and then you have to purge the existing toxins in your body. So
Mm,
the rest of the course covers how to support, what kind of diet and supplementation program will support the detoxification. So we cover the supplements, the diet, um, uh, and a number of other things. Then we cover modalities which you can use to support purging of existing toxic burden. There's a module on the gut. There's a module on testing for toxic exposure if you're so inclined. Some folks need hard evidence before they actually do something about it, which, to be honest, at this point, after the conversation we've had, I, I I hope you don't need convincing that this is something you need to take seriously. And then there's also, I have another module on, basically, we pretend that, basically, it's how to support the genes that are you you the genes that are utilized in methylation, inflammation, oxidative stress, and detoxification. So I covered the basic, the most common sort of genes that have been studied, and how to support their function, whether or not you have polymorphisms in those genes. So that's kind of the gist of it, and there will be more stuff coming along. And every purchase, every person will get a 45-minute complimentary consultation with me, where we can discuss either some health goals you have, if you need specific tips on how to navigate the course, or we can do a little bit of diet, lifestyle, supplementation analysis, and I can give you a few pointers. So I feel like there's a lot of value there. And the course, again, it's the way I see it, it's more of an investment, because there will be more information coming. I've got more videos planned, more lectures planned. And, it's one of those things where, there's so many layers to it. You can start with the food first, if you don't eat organic yet. But if you do, well, maybe you need to focus on supporting your diet to support detoxification. If you've Once you've done that, maybe after 3-4 months of implementing that slowly and gradually, then you may want to, like, refer back to how to support toxin reduction with other modalities. And again, there will be much more coming in the coming months. So again, it's an investment.
yeah, and just to reiterate, I mean that offer that whoever buys the course gets that
Mm,
45-minute consultation with you. First off, that's awesome. It's a very generous offer. I think it also shows just like the kind of person you are, man. Like you're in this for the right reasons. More and more I'm coming back to the question of like, what are we actually here for? You can get so caught up in metrics of like success. Of course, there's survival too. Like survival is a thing. We all have to pay the bills. We all have to keep a roof over our heads. But it's like, what are we actually doing here? And what we're actually doing is connecting with one another. We're taking matters into our own hands. And you're someone who's doing this for the right reasons. And you're someone who you're gonna acknowledge if you don't know something. You're gonna say, I need to do more research on this stuff. You're gonna say, I'm speculating here, I'm not speculating here. You have so much scientifically based knowledge, and you're absolutely correct. Like
mm,
there's lots of forces out there that don't want this information to get put out or don't want this research to get done. And mathematics doesn't lie, but statistics do. So anytime you're reading about studies and stuff like that, it's very easy to warp studies and contort studies if you want to get a certain. And so much of like the big money and the captured agency studies, they basically tell the people like, look, this is the results we want. So whatever you need to do
yeah.
to make this happen. So it's like, yeah, you inject a macaque monkey with like 45 pounds of pure liquid bison protein, and the monkey fucking explodes. And then it's like, bison protein's bad for you. You got to eat crickets. Crickets only for days. You will eat the bugs. But yeah, so I just think it's important. It just shows the kind of person you are, man. It's a really nice offer, that 45
Bro,
minute
I'll tell
consultation.
you, nothing gives me more joy, bro, than working with people and helping people just get better, man. Like it's so badly needed, man. It's so badly needed, bro. And thank you for helping me to share this work, man. Really appreciate it, Raven.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to have the link in the description to pick up Christian's course. Listeners of the Barbarian Noetics podcast, put the coupon code in, you get 30% off plus the consultation. So just something to really consider. And man, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today, Christian. I've learned a lot. I'm going to re-listen to this shit. We listened to it on 3 times speed. So Christian will be like,
Oh,
you're going to die in Phoenix. I'm going
Jesus,
to skip over that part.
Raven. Just censor that part out before you publish it. And thank you so much, bro. This was really fun. I just love your energy, and like we really, I feel like we have a great sort of flow. And bro, I'm really looking forward to sort of um being a part of your journey with doing some of these gallbladder flushes, bro. I want you to know you can text me anytime on Telegram, and just if you have any questions. I know I have 2 hours on this, on the gallbladder flush, but if any other questions arise, just let me know. I would love to help. This is like I remember my mother was here several months ago, and she did her first one at the age of like 61 or 2, and she told me that something, when she did the flush, the next morning something hit the toilet that was, she said, like this size. So I guess
Whoa.
close to 2 inches in length, something like that. Hit, she said, something hit the bottom of the toilet bowl, like boom, like something like that. Like, just imagine how long that
Holy
has been there,
shit.
so
Yeah.
I'd love to be a part of this journey with you. And man, if you can get some pictures that we can put them on the website, it would
Oh,
be
I'm
epic.
gonna try to capture the audio of the shit hitting the bottom of the bowl, and then I'm gonna mix it in. I'm gonna do EDM mixes with it and shit like that. It's gonna be awesome.
Awesome, awesome. We could
um,
do a remix on that.
it's gonna happen. Before you get out of here, Christian, let folks know how they can find you on the interwebs, and let folks know about your podcast and all that good stuff.
Thank you, brother. ChristianYordanov.com is my website, and that has links to everything. My podcast, Connecting Minds, my other podcast, Children's Health Podcast. And if folks are interested in any health consulting on whatever issue you may need help with, I offer 15-minute free consultations to kind of see where you're at, if I can help you. If I can't, I won't BS you. If I feel like you're not ready for it or whatever else, of course, I will let you know. And that it's on the website. If you want to email me directly, christian@christianyordanov.com, if you have any questions or queries. And Raven, thank you again, brother. This was great fun, brother.
Yeah, this was awesome. And I also just want to mention for folks too who are concerned, I know you offer the genetic testing and you work with a company that is very responsible about how they handle that information. So like someone like myself, super paranoid about, it's like my DNA is mine, God damn it. I don't want, but you work with a company that I believe you said it's just tests for very specific genes, and then it actually it discards the information
Yeah.
after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, so they only keep the sample for 3 months, after which they destroy it. They only test for the genes in the panel that you've requested. So, for example, you just get this kit in the mail. It's called DNA Life, and they have a bunch of different panels here written on the thing. So, the two main ones I use is Grow Baby for women that want to get pregnant, or persons that want to get pregnant, I guess. Um,
Good one.
that was a subtle one.
That was real
Uh,
subtle. I love it.
yeah, and then the other one is like a general DNA health one, which is like really useful for just basic risk factors. So yeah, so they only test for those genes that you select in the panel you want to run. And yeah, I also do a lot of other even more interesting tests for folks that have actual health stuff going on. So we do like stool testing for pathogens. We do organic acids testing with the urine, where we can test for B vitamins, antioxidants, this glutathione thing I was talking about, that's super important, mitochondrial function, energy production, and some gut dysbiosis, candida, mold exposure. And there's a ton of other much more advanced stuff. But those three would be some of my favorites. And yeah, so if anyone needs help, don't hesitate to contact me.
ChristianYordanov.com, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much again, Christian. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. I appreciate the hell out of you, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Peace, everybody.